Welcome into Crossing Broadcast on a Monday. I had to double check that it is in fact a Monday, and I intentionally threw off Craig on the other side of the glass by not doing the 30-second countdown that we were all very accustomed to. I mostly did that because somebody commented on the Russ Joy Show on Friday or something. They were like, why do you do the countdown after the nice song? I'm doing a little dance, and then the dancing ends, and I'm left with this countdown that I don't like. So now we've implemented something new on a Crossing Broadcast on a Monday. Now, you might think that that's a legitimate thing. You might think that's clownish behavior, but I can promise you the clownish behavior you might find on this show is to be expected. Unlike the clownish behavior of the head football coach of your team, your town, your Philadelphia Eagles. And let me tell you something. If you came here for some kind of level-headed take on Nick Sirianni, if you came here looking for me to say, that's okay, Nick, go ahead and have a moment with the haters. Nah. That's not happening today because Nick Sirianni did something that in a way is one of the more remarkable things any Philadelphia sports coach has done in the last few years, and that says a lot. Nick Sirianni somehow took a very unimpressive win over the Cleveland Browns, which we'll get to later in the show. He somehow made it all about himself, but in doing so, didn't really protect any of the players. So this isn't like the guy's making the story about him to try to deflect some heat off of his players. No, it wasn't that. He's just a fucking loser. He's an idiotic clown, and he's masquerading as the head coach of an NFL team. Now, if you needed to see some better version of Nick Sirianni this year to buy into him being the head football coach, I think that now, coming out of a bye week where this GM and owner likely should have said, time to show you the door, fella. It didn't work. Bringing you back was a mistake. Instead of doing that, they opted to bring this guy back. Now I'm going to cough because I'm sick. I'm sick of Nick Sirianni. I'm done with him. There is no reason at this point that Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie should continue to sit back and say, this is fine, everything's okay, like that little dog in the burning building and that meme that everybody likes to share. This isn't fine. The Eagles had a mediocre at best performance against the Cleveland Browns, yet another quarter in which we saw the Eagles offense score a big old 0, which Nick Sirianni's not really concerned about. I understand why you guys are asking the question. Hold on, I'm sorry. I didn't bring one of my children on the show to deflect, so I didn't have to answer real questions. So here, we'll hold the bobbleheads like they're my kids. Oh yeah, I understand why you're asking the question, but we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. We have an idea of what's going on. We're gonna fix it. Shut the fuck up. Just stop. I'm not being nice to Nick Sirianni anymore. Here's the thing about stupid people. Okay, sometimes you have to tell a stupid person they're stupid. Some people like to call me stupid. I don't think I'm stupid. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm a very stupid person. Nick Sirianni goes out looking like CM Punk walking into All In last year. Shaves the head. Looks like Britney Spears having her meltdown. Was she going to attack McLean's car with an umbrella? I don't know. Did Jimmy Kempski get out of the Lincoln Financial parking lot safely without having Nick Sirianni chase him down? Maybe with a golf club like Tiger Woods' wife. I don't know. Nick Sirianni looked like a clown yesterday, and in the midst of them somehow hanging on against a truly bad Cleveland Browns team with the quarterback who was given the worst contract in the history of the National Football League, Deshaun, don't take him to a massage parlor, Watson. You somehow escaped with a 4-point win, one that brought absolutely no excitement to the fan base, left the fans not wanting more. They wanted to get the hell out of the link with the win, but they wanted to get the hell out. A boring-ass game, a game that looked like all of the issues that the team had going into the bye and even in last year's collapse continue to rear their ugly heads. And what does Nick Sirianni do? Craig, cue it up. Nick Sirianni, in the midst of this 4-point, unimpressive win against the visiting Cleveland Browns, one in which the fans booed the team and actively chanted, "Fire Nick," at different points in the game. Nick Sirianni decided, I'm going to jaw. And it's not the same kind of jawing that he did last year when the Eagles went into Kansas City. Can't hear you anymore, Kansas City. No, he turned around and he jawed at his own fans. He jawed at the Eagles fans, presumably the ones that rightly were saying, "Fire Nick." Let's roll the footage.
On the Philadelphia sideline, 2 road games coming up at the
it puts the hand to the ear. Kind of, I can't hear you.
While the Cleveland.
Now, I pause there. Pause there on Brandon Graham. Go back a second there, Craig, because I want people to see the initial reaction. You see some of the defensive players there. You see CJGJ turn around and look. You see Brandon Graham cackling. All right, let's keep going. Everybody then starts to turn and look. There was a big guy back there. I don't know who that was. There was a big guy back there who kind of gave a little side eye, like, what the fuck is this? It's not Mailata. I don't know who that guy is. He's got a hell of a beard, though. And then you can start seeing some of the staffers. They're like, oh, great, this is happening. You see a few other players going, oh, great, this is happening. He's really doing it. There he goes. And the reason that I bring up the fact that the players were looking at this a certain way and that the staff was looking at it a certain way is that Sirianni tried to defend himself after the game. And he said something to the effect of, the players have let me know that when we were at our best, it's when I was being myself. And I tell the guys to be themselves, so they want me to be myself. Essentially saying, if I act like whatever the hell that is, I say clownish behavior. You maybe say entitled prick. Some of you might say total douchebag. Some of you might say the kind of person who fails upward in life. I'm not saying I would say those things, but some of you may be saying them today. He defended his behavior by saying the players wanted that. Now, I just want everybody to take a second here. Let's just run this one through our little old noggins here. There was a culture problem with this team last year that was part of why they collapsed. I made the argument prior to the bye week that there was a culture problem that allowed for a leader on the team, a captain, Darius, not big play Slay, to go on to Micah Parsons' podcast and trash his own teammate, CJGJ. I said there are cultural issues. Isaiah Rodgers going on Twitter and complaining right after the Eagles lost. I look at all of this and I say, all right, maybe Nick Sirianni has to do a better job of being a leader of men. Maybe Nick Sirianni just has to be a guy who goes out and he sets the example. And maybe the reason that we didn't see Nick Sirianni acting like an unmitigated douchebag this far into the season was because he's trying to hashtag grow. New season, new me. But then this happens coming out of the bye. Did the Eagles take down the Browns by a score of like 42-10? No. Did the Eagles beat the Browns by a somewhat competitive score of 35-21? No. Did the Eagles put up 25 plus points, 27 plus points? No. Do we think that after watching yet another game and after seeing this offense in motion yet again, that this is truly Kellen Moore's offense? No. Okay, so Nick Sirianni still has significant say on the offensive game plan, perhaps even the play calling. And then he admitted post-game that apparently he also overrode Vic Fangio on a defensive play call on a 4th down. Can somebody please explain to me once again why Nick Sirianni's here and what exactly it is that he does here? Can anyone explain it? I still can't. I have actively now spent 6 potential weeks into the NFL season being worried about this absolute dipshit as the head coach. And I say this thing about like Kellen Moore's offense because, Craig, I don't know if you can find it, and I should have sent it to you before, but there was a graphic going around of A.J. Brown's route tree showing every route that he took on a target or on a completion. And what you'll see is on the left side of the screen, it's all go routes. And then it's a bunch of dig routes on the right side. There's nothing over the middle. There's no real variation. It's effectively, well, on the left side, it's effectively the same route every time. And on the right side of the screen, it's a little hodgepodge. It's like a cute little bush. Not a Reggie Bush, not a George W. Bush, not an H.W. Bush. It's just a little bush. A happy little tree friend over on the right side. There are more and more questions being asked with each and every passing day. How much of the offense is really Kellen Moore's? How much of the game plan is Kellen Moore's? How much of the day-to-day or the game-to-game or the quarter-to-quarter, the half-to-half play calling really falling on Kellen Moore? And what it appears to be, once again, is that this is Nick Sirianni's offense. This is not Kellen Moore's offense. The Kellen Moore that we saw with Dallas, the Kellen Moore that we saw with the Chargers, would not have put this shit together. This is all we got. Craig, see if you can make that go a little bit more full screen. Or just give a little zoom. Just a un poco. Gracias, señor. Look at this shit, guys. We have one route that gets to the hashes. That's it. What are we doing here? This isn't Kellen Moore. And by the way, if this is Kellen Moore, if this is how Kellen Moore game plans for having a receiver, the quality and the caliber of A.J. Brown, then perhaps it was a mistake to bring him on as your OC. Because this ain't it. All right, let's get out of that. So the offense is a concern. I mentioned earlier that they're now 5 straight games, no points in the first quarter. And good old Nick Sirianni goes post-game, and he tries to offer some thoughts. But when he does, and as Craig brought up earlier, he did it with his kids on his lap and at the table. Something that you typically only see after a playoff win, perhaps a Super Bowl win, a big moment in time, perhaps a massive milestone game. He brought his kids up on the stage, and they look like every Philadelphia fan who was subjected to that shitty game and has been subjected to this absolutely listless team this season and through the collapse of last year. It's actually kind of a beautiful microcosm. That's a beautiful snapshot. And if and when he gets fired, which he rightfully deserves to be fired, if and when it happens, I hope that picture hangs in his living room. Him taking his kids on the stage is not to have a beautiful moment. This wasn't
oh, Nick Sirianni, what a family man. He's such a sweet guy. He genuinely loves his children so much that he's brought them up on the stage with him. That's what a good family man does. That's what he does, I'm telling you. We should see more coaches in the National Football League bringing their kids up on stage.
Bullshit. Craig, I want you to go to the clip. I sent the one over about Rex Ryan, because Rex Ryan had some pretty interesting things to say. So did Damian Woodley. We'll get to him in a second. But Rex Ryan was on Get Up this morning. This is like the beauty of doing the show at noon instead of doing my show on Tuesdays and Fridays very early in the morning when we don't have some of these clips to pull from. I want you to hear what former head coach Rex Ryan, who's dad Buddy Ryan, you may have heard of him, was a head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, clearly before my time, and maybe before the time of many of you who watch or listen to this show. But I want you to hear what Rex Ryan has to say. Now, he does say something really dumb at the end. But just listen to what Rex Ryan had to say about Nick Sirianni's behavior after the game, yelling at the fans and all that. Go ahead.
100% right. And part of
Turn that volume up, Craig.
As a head coach, when you get hired as a head coach, you got to connect with your fan base. That's what the good head coaches, they connect with their fan base. This part of us. And yeah, things don't go well and things, yeah, they're going to boo and they're disappointed. But you can't sit back and like, oh no, if you guys are with us, that's great. It's almost like the dude saying about the taking the receipts.
Yeah.
How'd that look?
Robert Saleh.
Did you connect with the fan base or not?
Right.
To me, it's important that you connect with them. This is atrocious. And especially in Philly. By the way, they boo Santa Claus. So get over yourself.
Good job, Rex Ryan. Go to the Damian Woodley clip now, Craig, because that's the one that kind of does a nice job of masterfully weaving Rex Ryan's big complaint about connecting with the fan base and behavior after the game. But it also touches on the fact that, interestingly enough, Nick Sirianni decided that after doing that, he brought his kids onto the stage. Let's hear what Damian Woodley had to say. Again, another national pundit. The day after the Eagles pick up a win over the Browns. We're not talking about the win. We're talking about Nick Sirianni. Let's go to this one.
D Wood, what'd you think of that?
What's this clown behavior, bro? This dude is a clown. Like, seriously, you gonna seriously talk trash to the fans?
Your own fans.
Your own fans. Like, listen, people come out here and pay big money to come out and watch you put a product out on the field. When you don't perform well, they have every right to boo you.
Damn right.
And you gonna get in all in your feelings because fans are booing you because your team stinks? Like, bro, come on. And then you brought up in our meet, like, oh, then you're gonna bring your kids into the post game to kind of soften the blow from what reporters might ask you. This dude is a straight clown, bro. Like, I just don't have any respect for what this man is doing. Y'all barely beat the god-awful Cleveland Browns, and then you want to talk trash to the fans. Get the hell out of here.
Well,
D Wood, what'd you think of that?
So there you go. That's two national pundits. And it's Damian Woody, not Woodley. I just got fact-checked in real time by Anthony. Texted me. Good old San Francisco. Still trying to recover after the Phillies loss. It's just unfortunate. I want to go over to some of the comments though, because that is ultimately what it's all about. And I'm gonna blow Craig's mind here. I'm gonna do the same thing that I now do on the Russ Joy Show when we go to the comments. We're gonna flip over to this camera for the comments, because then I can read. Craig's shaking his head no. He's so upset. He's triggered. Let's go over to the comments really quick because I want to see what everybody's had to say. Craig's been pulling up comments, but as we all know, the screen is over here. I don't get to see everything that you guys are saying. But Connor Allen says, putting Craig on the spot like this over and over isn't sustainable. Craig is making boku bucks. He's going to have to figure it out. Kevin at iRock Philly over on YouTube says, Eagles at Giants next week. It's going to be a close one. It's entirely possible. That would be really funny. If the Eagles somehow go up to the MetLife and they lose, Philly fan, how soft has Philadelphia sports fans become that we can't take our coach chirping back at us? Philly fan, it has nothing to do with the head coach chirping back at you. It has to do with optics. It has to do with the fact that this team isn't particularly good or dynamic or dominant in any way, and that you have to take into account what's actually happening within the course of the game and how is the game going to finish. And the game very clearly was a overly close one. And one that, like, if you're the head coach, you probably shouldn't go out of your way to self-fillet. Like Nick Sirianni at this point might pull the Marilyn Manson, get a couple of ribs removed. Don't do that, Nick. Don't turn around and start trying to tell everybody how great you are when you pull off a 4-point win over a Cleveland Browns team that is effectively a dog shit team, a bad franchise, and has the biggest albatross at the quarterback position we may have ever seen in this league. D.D. Skinner checks in, says, uses his kid as a shield. Yes. And I've seen the discourse on this too on Twitter as well, with some people pointing out that like that prevents media from asking tough questions. And then people say, well,
What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, what kind of question do you have to ask? Is it an expletive-laden question?
no. The question very simply is, if you have a little kid between you and the person that you're asking a question to, you're no longer approaching the subject as a fellow adult. You're almost approaching it as, all right, I have to talk to this guy, this dad. I have to change my entire approach because there's this human element, and this child who's in between me and the person I'm asking the question of doesn't really deserve my ire or vitriol. And if you don't understand that, that's okay. But there is a human element, for better or worse, in this whole reporting thing and the whole media thing. He was asked, by the way, Sirianni was asked about chirping at the media. And he said something to the effect of, oh, we're just happy to get the win. We're just happy to get the win. Craig, can you find the video that I sent you that was post-game, his post-game words? I think the Eagles were the ones who put it out, because I want to get back to that in a second, that, he was just happy to get the win. Just happy to get the win, that Nick Sirianni. Great guy. Great guy. Fantastic. Actually, Craig, you have it there. Let's just pull it up real quick. Make sure that volume's cranked. I just want everybody to understand. Nick Sirianni, sure, he was seen on camera chirping at the fans, at his own fans who may or may not have been chanting "Fire Nick" at different points in the game. But I just really quick would like to show the people. Go ahead, Craig. Let's just see.
Good desire, good effort, good everything. Way to have that dog mentality. Unbelievable job, right? Guys, I know, and I told you this about why I talk about my family a lot and why I kind of correlate the two. I know in my core, I know deep down that connection, accountability, details, and toughness wins. And makes good men too, right? I know in my core, guys, I'm praising my family on it. I know. Keep plugging away. Hungry and humble. Hungry and humble. Hungry and humble. It's about
hungry and humble. Nick Sirianni, baby. That's all the man is. He's hungry and he's humble. He wants to have a nice bowl of porridge, and he's not going to tell you about it because he doesn't want you to feel like you're missing out. That Nick Sirianni, top-notch human being, folks. Definitely a humble guy. Not the kind of motherfucker who goes and chirps at his fans after a 4-point win at home. That's not humble. What kind of bullshit are we doing here? Seriously. There is like a hypocritical mentality that Nick Sirianni continues to bring to this job. And I will once again point out, the media, whether you like them or not, and we like some and we don't like others, the media, whether it's the local or the national, have all essentially had the same point less than 24 hours after a win. That is a shitty look. The optics of that are bad. And yet, this guy is supposed to have the social, emotional intelligence. He's a true leader of men, if you listen to this GM and if you listen to this owner. He gets it. He knows what it is that motivates his players. He knows what it is to connect with a fan base. He knows what it is to be a compassionate, caring individual. Same guy who's out chirping at the fans after a 4-point win over the woeful Cleveland Browns. Let's go back over to the comments here really quick. Let's just take a gander because we'll see. Poor Ford. Ford has no power at his house, and yet he's still checking in. Ford, bless your heart. Absolute fantastic. It's gotten restored since. Good. That's fantastic. The great Phoenixville community. Reed DeFord says the culture is the problem, and it starts with Nick. 100% agree. Continues to happen. Philly fan says complaining about the offense, but not the play caller. We don't know who the play caller is. That again becomes part of the problem. Craig, if you can find it over on Twitter somewhere, I think it was Brandon Lee Gouton is the one who put the thing out. Somebody else probably tweeted about it as well. That Sirianni said that he's the one who called a critical play on offense, and he's the one who called a critical play on defense, and I believe neither of those plays worked out. So he's like trying to take some accountability. I'm sorry. The Eagles collapsed down the stretch last year. It was a collapse that would have otherwise cost any other head coach on any other team their job. And this GM and owner decided, no, we're going to let him replace both coordinators. And now here we are in the midst of a season that has been underwhelming in every sense of the word. And he's overriding both of his coordinators. Make sense of that. Someone please make sense of it. Make it make sense. I don't have a lot of huge requests in this world. Make it make sense. Anthony Sanfilippo. That's an old headshot. Boy, is that an old headshot. There's a lot more hair up on the cranium there. Nick Sirianni is a clown. We know that. But the sad tree route has more to do with the quarterback than the incompetent coach. We don't know that. We don't know that. Okay game yesterday. It wasn't perfect. It was an okay game. All right, let's go over to the quote, though, that I was looking for. So Brandon Lee Gouton tweets this out yesterday. Sirianni said he made the 3rd-and-1 call when Jalen Hurts got sacked right before the Eagles' field goal that got blocked, which, by the way, was almost a game-changing play that really could have cost them this one. Ends the first half on a terrible note. An absolutely brutal set of plays. 1, if you're Jalen Hurts, you can't take a sack. 2, that field goal attempt, it's not like it was doomed. We all like Jake Elliott a lot. Not the ideal play right before half. It gets blocked and run back for a touchdown by Rodney McLeod, who we all love and appreciate here in the city of Philadelphia. And then he also said he made a defensive call that didn't work out instead of Vic Fangio at one point. I'd love to know which defensive call that was. And again, just really quickly, for those who might just be out there wondering to themselves, no, I don't know why Nick Sirianni is overruling Vic Fangio on a defensive play call. Can somebody explain to me where Nick Sirianni became a defensive savant? He's supposed to be a great offensive coach, and the offense has looked listless since, I don't know, week 12 of last season. Is he going to start calling special teams plays now? Is he going to take over the kick return unit? Has he got some good blocking strategy for downfield? Does he like the dynamic kickoff? We got Nick Sirianni. He's a multifaceted coach, and he's socially, emotionally intelligent, as we've been told. Okay. Going to go back over here to the comments really quick. We're going to fly through some of these. Jim Cochran says, heard a lot this morning about the coach being a dipshit. Not much about owner and GM bringing back said dipshit when they had more than enough evidence that he's a dipshit and bad coach. Time's yours. Jim, I don't remember you being on here. I don't remember you checking in on the Russ Joy Show every Tuesday and Friday morning at 8:30 a.m. on YouTube. But I will tell you that the people who have been, they know very well that I have been asking of the GM and of the owner since last season why he survived through the entire collapse, why he survived through replacing the defensive coordinator before the regular season was up, why he returned to start the season, why he was allowed to go into the bye week when it was very clear that it's not working. And as I've said before, somebody in the Eagles has had a conversation with the Belichick camp. It's been posited out there by multiple national pundits who typically get these things right. So I still don't know why. And I will continue to hold Howie's feet to the fire and Jeffrey Lurie's feet to the fire because I don't believe in this coach. And I said last week on my show that the only way, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago on this one, it was one or the other, that the only way the Eagles make the playoffs, and I'm not even looking for a deep playoff run because I don't think it's a thing right now. The only way the Eagles make a playoff run is if this talent on this team somehow just overrides. They win in spite of the head coach. He's not going to actively help them win games. He is a dope, a dolt, a spoon. You know, British people, they call somebody a spoon. You know what I mean? They call you a spoon because they don't trust you with a fork. You're a spoon. Nick Sirianni is a spoon. All right, Josh White checks in over on YouTube. Such clown behavior, my goodness. You barely beat the worst team, and then you taunt the crowd. Kevin at I Rock Philly says, after next week, the Eagles will be 4-2. If Nick gets fired, it will be at the end of the season. Yeah, I mean, they have tied their wagon to this coach. Even if they were to collapse, but let's just play this one out. This is actually where it gets more upsetting, if you're being honest. The way that this gets more upsetting, if you're an Eagles fan, is if, let's say the Eagles get to a point where they're 5-8 or 6-9 or something like that. And you go, all right, pretty clear they're going to move on from the coach in the offseason. Or the wheels really do fall off and the team ends up going they're 4-9, 4-10. And it's really fallen apart in the worst way imaginable. If you part ways with the coach mid-season or even at the end of the season, it's going to give people like me who said he shouldn't have survived into the bye week, certainly not into the season, but especially into the bye week, it's going to give those people more ammo to go after ownership and the front office with. And I think there's a non-zero chance that he's not the coach next year. And so I will once again ask, how the hell was the decision made to bring him back? Because again, a lot of the issues that this team has, whether it's culture, whether it's on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's the head coach meddling now in both sides of the ball, despite replacing both coordinators, all of those issues are still here. The issues or the perceived issues with the starting quarterback that you've invested a lot of money in are still there. None of it appears to have been fixed or remedied or rectified. I can't fathom having something go so wrong at my job and then being given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to show that it was an anomaly and that I'm better than that, only to then turn around and show I haven't learned a damn thing. That's not how the private sector works. For the most part, it's not how the public sector works, although some teachers. I said that's just for Ford, the former teacher. I've known some bad teachers. It's hard to fire a teacher. There have been some bad ones. I've known some bad ones. But for the most part, if you're bad at your job, eventually there are mechanisms in place to remove you from that position. Nick Sirianni, for some reason, he's safe. We'll go back over here really quick. I want to try to fly through some of these other ones. Reed DeFord says, dog mentality, an 18-year-old Shih Tzu, maybe. Ford says, here's the deal. They should have fired Sirianni, but also if Kellen Moore is a fucking innovator, why is he calling jump balls as plays for A.J. Brown and Devontae? This again is why I say I don't know if this is Kellen Moore's offense. I'll see if I can I'll see if I can aggregate all of the tweets that I saw on Sunday and then even this morning for the show tomorrow morning. But like, I've seen some people who certainly understand the X's and O's of football a lot better than I do, are paid to do the breakdowns of this, who do a lot of the all 22 film breakdown. And what they have said pretty much unanimously is that this Kellen Moore offense looks nothing like the Kellen Moore offenses in Dallas or with the Chargers. And I'm going to trust that those people are correct. And I showed you, like, anecdotally, the A.J. Brown route tree is a little bit wonky, a little bit weird. Now, if you want to take Anthony's mentality and say that has more to do with the quarterback, maybe fair point. I don't think it tracked every route that he ran in the game. I would be interested to see, were there any design plays for A.J. Brown to go over the middle? The same way that Devontae Smith got to run that mesh play that helped them score a touchdown. Questions I have, Josh White heard the Sirianni line, said, hungry and humble. We almost lost to the worst team, and then he taunted our fans like me at recess in elementary school. Don't like that. Josh said he had a bad German teacher freshman year. Yeah, I know that guy. I wasn't a bad teacher. I would never say I was a great teacher. I said, solid enough. Great, no. Solid enough. I had more social emotional intelligence than Nick Sirianni does. That's important. Joey B says, Russ, I coached my kids' hockey team over the weekend. After that game, I yelled at our fans. Good for you, Joey. I'm glad that they won. Joey B also says that I need to yell at the chat at the end of every show. Signed, Nick Sirianni. Let's see. Over on X, I don't know who this, I guess their handle is X. That's interesting. The digging Sirianni bit is a little old. Can't we talk football? All the media's been talking about is Nick. How about the other 52 men on the field? Random X person on X. The reason that the media is talking about Sirianni is because he has overshadowed the win. And if you really want to break down what happened in the Eagles game, we can do that. But it was a shitty game. And it's one that the Eagles would have lost to virtually any other team in this league. The offense was predicated on A.J. Brown being able to slow his route down to catch a ball on his hip late to essentially ice the game. It once again relied on big plays and sensational high point catches by A.J. Brown. It required on the elite speed of Devontae Smith on a mesh route. There's not a whole lot else to look at from this game. We could say Cooper DeJean looked good in the slot in his first start. Fine. You want to make that case? Cooper looked really good. Quinyon Mitchell and CJGJ had a bad news Bears moment where they came down. It should have been Quinyon Mitchell's ball to come down with on an interception. CJGJ was running blindly, and they crashed into each other, and then they gave up a rushing first down on the next play. We could talk about boneheaded moments in the game. But the reason that everybody's talking about Sirianni is because he has made this about himself. And when a coach does that, we tend to talk about the fact that the coach is now overshadowing the team. We did this last year with John Tortorella, when Tortorella decided that he was going to make himself kind of the face of the team and that he was going to bench Sean Couturier and then not show up to answer questions about it, kind of hide behind a whole bunch of different reasons why he didn't want to answer the questions. All right, we've done that. We've done that when Doc Rivers has made an ass out of himself in this town. We've done it when Rob Thompson's given an iffy answer or Gabe Kapler gave a weird answer like while wearing a Speedo. Like we've done that. That's how this works. We critique coaches. We critique GMs. I critiqued the other day about how Dave Dombrowski was very happy with the trade deadline. He thought everything was hunky-dory. It was totally fine. It was a great deadline. And how Rob Thompson tried to tell us that Austin Hayes was an everyday player, even though we all knew he wasn't. That they were happy with their rotation and their bullpen. Huh? We tend to hold those people accountable when they say stupid things because that's what you're supposed to do. That's how this works. Let's see. Here we go. X again. He's not going to change his attitude or mind because you media folk have a hurt bumhole over his attitude. Is this person British? I've got a hurt bumhole. My bumhole hurts. because Nick Sirianni had the audacity to go out in front of a national crowd and make it about himself. No, we just think that he's an idiot. Let's see. There were some other things over here, and then we gotta move on to some other stuff. D.D. Skinner going at Anthony Sanfilippo for saying the thing about Jalen Hurts, calling him a Jalen hater. Modog42 over on YouTube says, the overreaction of some Eagles fans is just stunning. Eagles are one Barkley catch away from being 4-1. They've weathered the injuries and are doing okay for now. The hyper focus on Sirianni is nuts. It's not. The culture problem is still there. And it all starts at the head coach. That's it. Now, you could be right, by the way. And I'm just very quickly going to just make a point because I actually like the point that you're making. Because it actually outlines why this entire line of thinking is the wrong line of thinking. Follow me for a second. So this person notes that one Saquon Barkley catch away from being 4-1. It's a good thing that the Eagles have never had a season where we walk away from a win and say, man, they did X, Y, and Z wrong, but just imagine if they put it all together. Just imagine what this could look like in the playoffs if they can put everything together. It's a good thing that hasn't happened for the Eagles in the past. It's a good thing that didn't happen with the Eagles last year. It's a really good thing that when the Eagles started 10-1 last year, we didn't start to see some really glaring weaknesses in the team and say, well, they're still winning in spite of that. They still have to get that cleaned up, and that's a dumpster fire, and that could potentially be problematic. It's a good thing we did. Oh, that's right. We did have that last year. We had a whole lot of, oh, well, if it was only this, if there was only one of those, if there's one. No, this team started 10-1 last year. And we knew that it was a fraudulent 10-1. By the time they got to like week 7, maybe week 8, we started to kind of smell that something was a little bit off and that they were benefiting in some way from having the competition they were playing, from having a couple of big plays that kind of overshadowed some other deficiencies the team had. But we started to smell that like, all right, something's a little bit weird. It's kind of like when you see there's like a pack of meat in your fridge. And you're like, well, the color still looks kind of right. That beef, all right, it's like 4 days past expiration, but I don't see any mold on it. And then you open up the pack and you kind of smell it. And you're like, oh, well, raw beef doesn't really smell that appetizing anyway. It's probably fine. And then you cut inside of the meat and you're like, oh, no, that's probably not good. Well, we'll cook it anyway. And then you sear it off and you eat it. And the next 2 hours later, you're shitting your brains out. You're going, well, I wonder what happened. Sometimes things are rotten. You don't see it right away. You start to see some signs. Sometimes you decide to actually observe them and take them as warnings. And sometimes you push them away. And then you say to yourself, no, it's going to be fine. And then ultimately, the result ends up being the same. You get food poisoning. That's what the Eagles are. The Eagles last year had food poisoning through the first 11, 12 games of the season, and they had the shits for the rest of the regular season and then into a no-show performance against the Bucs in the playoffs. Okay? The Eagles had food poisoning last year. They entered this season with a pack of meat known as Nick Sirianni that they could smell probably wasn't good, was probably past its expiration date. But they said, you know what? If we put this meat into a nice Kellen Moore marinade and we allow it to just sit in the fridge in a Ziploc bag, airtight, overnight, it's going to smell better. And then if we go and we go out and instead of getting the latest grill, we're actually going to go get a big green egg named Vic Fangio. And we're going to bring him in and we're going to fill it with some nice, hearty, big chunk charcoal. And that smoke is going to permeate the marinated meat and it's all going to be fine. Guess what, friends? It's not happening. Okay? Because by the time that meat gets cooked, by the time that Nick Sirianni meat gets cooked, and we all have to taste what is ultimately going to happen, guess what's going to happen, friends? We're all going to get the shits. It's going to happen again. And you know why? Because this GM and this ownership decided to bring him back. This thing is rotten to the core. It doesn't matter if they win a few more games. It doesn't matter if they make the playoffs at this current rate. If it looks just as unimpressive now as it did down the stretch last year, you're going to be left disappointed. And don't say I didn't warn you. And now if you're just like, if you like to wear the Kelly Green shades and everything's fine, there's no big problem, everything's great, Russ is overreacting again, that's fine. But come back to me when it falls apart later in the season. Just come back to me. If they fire him mid-season, if they fire him at the end of the year, come back. And by the way, I say this on my show too. If I'm wrong, okay, I'm not. But if I'm wrong, and this Eagles team somehow galvanizes around this coach, and this team goes on a deep playoff run, and they win the Super Bowl, clip this show up, throw it back at me. I'm just going to warn you that when I go on the record with an actual prediction, I tend to be right. I'd encourage you to go back and watch the Russ Joy Show from August 6th, where I outlined every concern I had with the Philadelphia Phillies that had reared its ugly head from the All-Star break on, from the London series on. I did it on Friday's show, or last Thursday's show. I took it bit by bit, and every point was right, except for like the starters. The starters ended up performing fine. Everything else was spot on. And I hate to tell you right now, folks, but there's nothing right now that I saw on Sunday that makes me think that the issues we saw at the end of last year and through the first 4 games of this season have gotten fixed. This is the same shitty core. And it starts with the head coach. I'm done. And Didi, by the way, is right. Let's see how the easy schedule plays out. They might end up racking up wins, and I'm going to make the same point if they do that I just did and that I did about last year. If you beat up on some easy, crappy teams and you pick up some hollow wins, when you get to the playoffs and have to actually take on a good team, they're going to kick your teeth in. Tampa Bay's team last year wasn't some all-star squad. They were a fine, relatively competent playoff team. You run into an actual team in this postseason, given how this team has played so far this season, you're going to get embarrassed. And then it'll be, oh, now we're moving on from Nick Sirianni. Are you going to keep the coordinators in place and replace the head coach and automatically kind of handcuff that coach to these coordinators because now you don't want to move on from these guys? And if you do, you're limiting your talent pool. And if you don't, and you let a new head coach come in and then pick their coordinators, you're then showing that like you really made a mistake by bringing back the head coach. And now you've done a really shitty job. And Jim Cochran's right. Russ, I'm always right. Hungry and humble. That's exactly right. When I'm wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong. And there are times that I'm wrong. There are a lot of times that I'm right. Nick Sirianni's not winning the Super Bowl this year. Clip that if they do. And by the way, if he proves me wrong and they win the Super Bowl, I'll be thrilled. I will gladly admit that I was wrong. Pagan checks in over on YouTube. I'm glad that he could stop promoting, what's it, Men at Work? Men at Work is the show that like leads his Twitter bio now, not Crossing Broad, that pays the bills. Very interesting. Kyle Pagan checks in and says, my predictions are typically right. The guy that got his last prediction wrong, 45% watch. I noted the next day, 45% was ridiculous. And I said 30%. And then after the first couple of games, I said, I was very wrong. Because that's what you do. When Pagan eventually hits puberty, and then eventually maybe becomes an adult, perhaps starts a family, or doesn't. You don't have to start a family. You don't have to start one. He might learn. Sometimes you admit you're wrong. Sometimes you admit you're right. These are the things that you do as an adult. All right, now I have to get over to the other team because I have 5 minutes here. There was another team that did something really big over the weekend. It wasn't just the Eagles. And we'll talk about more about the game tomorrow. By the way, if you want a little more X's and O's breakdown, we'll do that Tuesday morning, Russ Joy Show, 8:30 a.m. The Sixers had a really nice moment. Paul George put more good film together in a preseason game than Tobias Harris did in his entire career as a Philadelphia 76er. If you watched any of the clips of Paul George this weekend, you will see a guy who still has the ability to be a dynamic scorer at multiple levels anywhere on the court. A great early sign. There was a quote late last week from Nick Nurse talking about Joel Embiid not practicing, about Joel Embiid not playing in the preseason, about how he's going to have his knee looked at, and about how that's okay. Like, don't get worried about it. It was already planned. There are people already concerned, but that's not it. That's not the only thing right now. That's not it. The thing that I'm actually the most intrigued by is what happened with the Philadelphia Flyers over the weekend. Indulge me for a second. The Flyers are starting their season on a 4-game road trip. before they come back here for a home opener where we'll be doing the press row show, pregame, intermission, postgame on the Snow The Goalie channel. They're starting out on a tough 4-game swing on the West Coast. They win their first game. And in that first game, the first goal of the season is scored on the power play. If you paid attention to the Flyers last year, you'll know the Flyers had a historically bad power play. So that was almost like in a fun way sending a message. Wow, that thing that always kills them, that absolutely wrecked them last year and really did effectively kill their chance of making the playoffs a season ago. They scored on the power play, first goal of the season. They then go on to a shootout, and they win in a shootout. Now, as many people know, Sam Ersson is a good shootout goalie. That is one thing that he is quite solid at. The one thing is, historically, the Flyers have been a really bad shootout team, but they won. And so then everybody felt really good. Did Matvei Michkov record a point in the first game? He did not. Did he look good? He did. Did Jet Lashenko look out of place? Not really. Jet Lashenko actually looked like a pro player. Do I think he's going to be here past the 9-game audition before getting sent back down to junior? I don't. I don't think right now that the front office wants to keep him here for the year. I think the coaching staff is going to actively push to bring Jet Lashenko and keep him here for the entire season. At 18 years old, he became the youngest Flyer in history to suit up for a game. I think he beat the previous owner of that distinction by like 65 days, something like that. So Lashenko became the youngest Flyer in history to suit up for a regular season game. He looked good. He didn't play in the second game. In the second game, Matvei Michkov put the playmaking ability back on full display, picks up his first point on the power play. If you're looking for a reason to be positive about the Flyers and to think that there's actually something brewing, go back and watch I guarantee if you look for any of the highlights from the first 2 games, you're going to see Matvei Michkov in at least 3 plays in each game. The funny thing that the Flyers are going to have to figure out is Michkov is processing the game at such a speed, the rest of his teammates don't know how to process it that fast with him. It's almost like he's playing the game on like 0.5 speed, and he's watching everything play out. And he's kind of doing the Doctor Strange thing, where he's like sitting there kind of seeing all the millions of different possibilities in the end game fight. That's like Michkov. He seems to have 3 or 4 different passes, different lines of sight, different passing lanes readily available to him, that when the puck gets to him, it's like almost a one-touch pass right away into a perfect scoring opportunity. Had it not been for the fact that like he has teammates who just couldn't finish, Michkov could have easily had 4 points this weekend. There was a play in the first game. Michkov sets up Morgan Frost beautifully. Wide open net. Wide open net. Like the goalie's turned the other way. There's no defenseman between him and the goal. And Frost flubs it across the net face to the other side of the ice. Michkov, if his teammates are able to start executing at a higher percentage, I think 60 points could be in play for the kid. Maybe more. Right now, he doesn't look overwhelmed by the NHL, which is excellent. Now, I'm going to be going into more detail about that tomorrow, more about the Eagles. We'll probably dive a little bit into the Sixers. And I started kind of doing a post-mortem of the Phillies last week on my show, but we will get into all of that Tuesday morning, 8:30 a.m. on the Russ Joy Show. Go subscribe. And don't forget, it's the drive to 500 subscribers. When we hit the 500 subscriber mark, I will be giving away a jersey to one random viewer who's subscribed to the channel. So you can go over there, hit the subscribe, and you'll be entered to win when we hit 500 subscribers. I want to thank Craig on the other side of the glass for doing such a great job producing the show as always. I want to thank all of you, especially those of you who checked in over on YouTube, but those of you also who came in via Facebook, who were watching via Facebook, those of you who commented over on X/Twitter. We'll be back later this week. Kevin Kincaid will be in the lead chair here on Thursday. We salute the clown, Nick Sirianni, and we will talk to all of you later this week here on Crossing Broadcast. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Talk soon.